Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you for joining me. On the show this week, I've got Brin, Kline joining me from Assured Auto Works in Florida. Brin's going to join me to talk about a few different things. One of those being the Accelerate training event in Orlando this October. I'm actually going to be teaching a class there as well, so we'll talk a little bit about that, but make sure to check out the show notes for the link in case you want to sign up or read more about it. We'll also talk about shop ownership, the path to getting to that point, help along the way, and a whole lot more. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation, so let's jump right in. There we go. All right. How's it going, Brin?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, Sean.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for having me on last night, too, for the train by text thing. That was fun.
Yeah, I always have a good time. You usually overstay our welcome, being in there for like 3 hours. I'm glad that we were able to kind of bow out after an hour and a half or so. But it was good having you on. Always fun. Always a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. You guys are a riot. I spent most of the time just chuckling at all the jokes and stuff. So
yeah, and the monitor in the chat too is kind of fun. There's a lot of folks in there, kind of pretty active. So
some good case studies too, or the presentations. I saw Tommy's at Vision, but I think he had kind of refined it since then with the slides and stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I think he, at Vision, he sent me the wrong PowerPoint there in accident, or one that, not the final one, kind of one of the earlier drafts or something. So, and he didn't realize it until like in the middle of trying to present this thing. But
yeah, that the technical difficulties. It's the worst because you're up there in front of everybody, and like he was saying, nervous anyways, and then something technical outside of your control goes wrong and you're just like,
No, man, especially on that stage, I think
Yeah.
this year was a little bit of lighter attendance for that session, so it wasn't maybe as intimidating as the years before, but it's still tough,
Still
especially
some
for
big
history.
names out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you see like Jim Morton looking back at him like, oh boy. Um, I think you have the record for the best presentation at that Tech Talk. So, what was that 22 when it did the Price is Right?
Yeah, the diag is right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know, man. Going into that, I just wanted to do something different. I presented the year before, and I didn't I didn't submit anything for the next year. I think it's a great idea, but I just felt like, the whole concept is to give new folks a chance. So I
Hmm.
didn't submit anything, but I guess a few months after, so, later, Matt had asked me if I'd be willing to put something on. So I wanted to do something kind of different. And we came up with that concept. But to be honest with you, I mean, I knew going into it was either going to be a lot of fun or is it going to be devastatingly embarrassing, one or the other. So I'm glad that it went as good as it did. I mean, I think a lot of that stuff has to do with your frame of mind at the time, and
Sure.
I'm usually so nervous about presenting and being in front of people, so I get kind of mentally like, ugh, man. I try to basically shift my mindset and get in a better mood and be less stressed out. And I think after about 5 minutes, the nerves kind of start to ease up, and then you just make a
Yeah.
decision to have fun, and that's what goes. But yeah, really enjoyed that one.
Is it out there on YouTube still somewhere?
I think parts of it are,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it doesn't really do it much justice because it's, just somebody's cell phone footage from, farther back. And
Sure.
but we had a lot of fun because the participation obviously was great, and being able to have Rich Falco and Keith Perkins help
Yeah.
out was a lot of it was a great time. So
That was great. What didn't Richie have like signs that he was holding up and
yeah,
stuff like
to
that? So-
we were so worried about, like I said, it was going to be an embarrassing flop or really fun. So ahead of time, we're like, Rich, you're going to have to start identifying people that you think will not just tell us to pound sand when you call them up. Because, man, how embarrassing would that be to call people up and they're just like, no, not coming. So, and then we thought, well, we're going to need these signs so that people know, we want them to have a lot of fun. We want them to shout. We want them to get loud. So, it worked out nice because he did a good job. He was like the Vanna White of that presentation.
Yeah, that
Yeah, it was
was
good times, and we were fortunate to have a lot of folks sponsor, with giveaways and stuff like that. It was
yeah. You guys
really
gave away a
cool to be able
ton
to
of cool
give away
stuff.
some stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, and yeah, everybody was talking about that. And I mean, to bring a little bit of fun into the stuff too, at whatever level you can do it, I think it's definitely something for everybody to consider that's putting on a class, right? And I did it at the college level for about 5 years, and if you keep it all technical,
Mm.
well, some people really enjoy that. Like you got to have some humor and life to it, some way, whatever that is. Everybody's got a different style, but man, it keeps everybody engaged and wanting to be there.
To be honest, I'm a humble person. I feel like I do a pretty good job with the cars that we see. I mean, I get my backside handed to me from time to time, but regardless, like we're fortunate, or I'm fortunate enough, I should say, to be surrounded by people that are way smarter than me, and to be surrounded by trainers that are way better than me. And so really, when I have an opportunity to do something, I kind of lean on everything I can to make it as interesting as possible, to kind of overcome my lack of abilities to really teach, really well, or whatever, and or to be super technical. I mean, I like I said, I feel like I do okay with the cars I see, but I'm not always the best at being able to explain the scientific details of things. So again, it's just about trying to make it as fun as possible, because sometimes you're up in front of that class, and especially in the evenings when technicians are just drained, and you
Yeah.
just feel like you're speaking to a wall, and it's just, I don't know, it's hard to be animated, so we got to
Hmm.
figure out ways to kind of make it fun for sure.
Yeah. So you got a shop down in Florida, right? You're owner of the shop, or what's the setup?
Yeah, Assured Auto Works in Melbourne, Florida. So Melbourne is about an hour east of the Orlando airport, so Orlando area, and about 30 minutes south of where the rockets launch, Space Coast
Oh, okay.
there. So pretty decent amount going on. High tech area with a lot of like Harris Corporation, Northrop Grumman stuff. I don't know, several high
Okay.
tech, government contract type organizations around us, and but yeah, we opened Assured Auto Works about 13 years ago in Melbourne, and I don't know what to say. It's a general repair shop. I'm pretty much like a lot of shops, technician turned shop owner. So there was a lot of years of me paying for my naivety going into it, and then but you go to conferences, you take some management classes, you don't, you make sure that you're not afraid to ask help, seek out help, and make some changes. And we've been doing pretty good for several years now, but it's a long, hard road. But we're glad to be where we're at, and yeah,
Nice. So were you independent or dealer tech or both beforehand?
independent mostly. I did do have some experience at a Chrysler and Suzuki store for a
Okay.
while, but primarily independent. My wife taught secondary social science, so I figured I would eventually teach automotive technology, and I was presented an opportunity to teach secondary automotive technology at a high school local, and did that for a while. But I think I might eventually enjoy doing something like that again, but I wasn't really ready for it at the time. But yeah, primarily independent shops, a little bit of experience in different areas as well.
What made you take the jump to owning your own place?
Um, I mean, basically, I don't know. I heard Pete Rudloff say that he was unhireable on a episode he did with Carm years ago, and I didn't really understand what that meant until I started really listening to him kind of explain what that meant. And I feel like most of us that are in the position we're in are there. And maybe it's not that we're not hireable. Maybe it's more that the auto repair industry is kind of crappy.
Hmm.
I mean, so the long story short is um, it's just not easy to find a good place to work. A place that really wants what I wanted, which is
Hmm.
to I don't know, offer really high level and accurate diagnostic work, and really high level quality repairs, and just be a good representation of what auto repair is like. It's not to say there isn't shops in my area that do that, but not at the level that we were wanting, or I was wanting at the time. So
Yeah, I mean, you see that a lot with like the best of the best in the automotive industry. From my perspective, usually end up going to do their own thing, and I'm sure there's lots of various examples depending on the career you pick, but a lot of things that you would think of the best, they're going to go work for the best company, right? Or that best company is snatching up a lot of the really good people where, boy, there's just so many going out on their own in the automotive, at least in the last 10 years or more that I've seen. Look at a guy like Keith Perkins, right? That's the one I've referenced before, but they actually fired him from the shop that he was working at, and look at what he's doing with everything now. It's just wild.
yeah, I kind of joked about him and Liz being overachievers last night, but
Yeah.
they are definitely super impressive. And I've told my tech slash friend today, Carlos, that Keith Perkins is probably one of the sharpest guys I know. But yeah, that's a great example, because someone like him was definitely being underutilized in the positions that he was in, and totally not really appreciated. And there's so much potential there that I think shops, I don't know, shops are just not managed the way they should be in a lot of cases. So, yeah, I mean, at some point you just gotta, if you're not happy, it's either leave the industry or try to find this way to be happy within the industry. And we're hoping to bring more talent to the industry and retain the ones that we have. So all the better to them if they're not able to find what they need under somebody else's umbrella. Go get their own, I guess. But make sure, there's a lot of them. Technician. I joked about technician turned shop owner, and being naive. I really admire folks that that recognize that they want something more and they go for it. But I guess unsolicited advice, if you go that route, prepare more than most of us do. That's all I can ask you. Get some business training, business management, and learn about marketing and managing people and all of those things, and before you make the jump.
You shouldn't just wing it and see what happens.
Well, that's what we do, isn't it? Like a car comes in. Oh, I've never seen one of those before, but who cares? I got this thing.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with everything in life. Tearing apart my tub in my master bathroom right now, and every corner I take, I'm like, oh crap, I didn't expect that. We'll eventually get it, but it's it can be painful during the process, right?
Right. It's good to be brave and just go for that challenge. Like, I'll figure it out. But then sometimes you get into it and you're like, oh, wildly unprepared.
A little bit better ahead of time, this would have been less painful.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much information out there for people looking into it nowadays too, which tech or owner or whatever you want, there's so much training out there.
Oh my gosh. We are so fortunate in that regard. We have so many resources. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, think about when I started. I graduated tech school in 2006, and I mean, social media really wasn't a thing, and I think IATN was pretty much it, for online resources, and the training was, at least what I was aware of, was just like, the Napa class once a month or whatever, and now it's a completely different world for somebody who wants to learn in this industry right now.
I think about my career in this industry, and it looks like, what they tell you to do when you're running away from alligators is zigzag, which apparently is a myth, that was busted recently. Apparently you're supposed to just haul ass
okay,
and
good
not
to know.
zigzag. But, it was definitely not an efficient progression. So fortunately, with the resources that we have, if we can get a little more organized with training and make sure the right people are at the right classes and stuff like that. But, honestly, there's so few people attending, I guess we'll take what we can get. We'll get them in the wrong classes. It's better than none, I guess. But definitely people have a much better opportunity for advanced careers. And you mentioned Keith. I hate to bring it up again, but he doesn't have that much years of experience, and he's mind-blowing his where he's at now, considering the time he's got in. And that's a great example of somebody dedicated to learning to be the best and taking the time and the resources that are available, of course.
Yeah, and I went down to his place, took my employee down for training on programming a month or so ago, and he's got super nice shop and a bunch of really awesome guys working for him too. It's like I say, impressive what he's done within that amount of time, but it's really cool to see people succeed that way and do well, because you're like, okay, like, I'm not Keith, but I can shoot for something like that too. Like, it doesn't have to look like the shop down the road or whatever. I can shoot for something bigger if I want to. It is possible, and here's a model that I can work with. So I like having people like that show me the way.
Yeah. No, it's good to see, if you can learn from others and be encouraged to go for it and do things that maybe you wouldn't have. That's a great thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a different perspective. I even like that, just going into different shops, doing the mobile thing. Like, everybody's got a kind of a different way of doing their thing, and I like to see the different mindsets, because you do the same thing every single day, and you don't even know what's out there. You don't even know what different method of thinking there is to solve this problem or to improve this process,
Yeah.
and it's good to be open-minded in that respect, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I do some part-time stuff in other shops as well. I guess I'm not as curious as you about their operations, but I've always wanted to. Years ago, before I knew about, well, before Remarkable Results existed, I had a dream, and I came and I told my service advisor, I want somehow to go to different shops and interview, like owners about, how they run their operation, what has worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, like kind of learn their stories and the story of their company and their successes and their failures, and just kind of document it and put it out in the world somehow. I had no idea what it was going to be, radio, or if it was going to be, audio only, or audio, video. I didn't even, anyways, I contacted one of the female shop owners I know, a good friend, Diane Larson, about it, and she's in Peabody is how they pronounce it, Mass. And she said, it's funny you should mention that, because I have a friend that's actually just was at the Women's and Auto Care clinic or something. I can't remember what it was called, but he's starting a podcast, interviewing shop owners and things like, automotive professionals and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but anyways, the concept of doing that, and of course in his situation, most of it's virtual. He meets people at events and stuff, but I think there's still an opportunity, although it would be kind of hard and expensive, is to be able to visit shops and get a little more in depth of what they're, because it's easy to, I don't want this to come off wrong, but it's easy to sit in an interview like this and discuss things, but when you get a little deeper and kind of talk more in depth about the policies and see firsthand how they're experiencing, maybe an unsatisfied customer or a mistake that was made in the shop. I think
Sure.
if you're able to spend a day or two at a shop and learn those things and be able to document them, obviously people would have to allow themselves to be somewhat vulnerable, but I mean, we can learn some immense stuff from a situation like that. But even if we didn't document it, like I like the idea for myself just to learn things, but, like I said, a little more in depth as opposed to just a quick conversation about, hey, this is what happened to me, what would you do, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to say, like, yeah, this is how I handle these problems, and this is the way things go. These are the rules that I've set up, and then you get into the real life, and chaos ensues, and it doesn't always go the way that you think it will.
Oh, it is. Somebody asks, even whether it's diagnostic stuff or whether it's dealing with a customer or a situation, you see it. I mean, when somebody asks on a Facebook group or something like that, it's super easy for me to be like, well, this is what you should do. Or, I think this is what you need to kind of consider. But when you're actually facing the situation yourself, it's definitely much different. It's a lot easier to give advice when you're not part of the situation, which sometimes can help, somebody get out of a rut, obviously, because, this is what I think too, and they said that, so I feel a little better about my decision. But yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the person who's not elbow deep in it has some different or better perspective too, which is nice. But yeah, you don't know exactly how you'll handle all these situations till you're in it, and it doesn't always go the way that you want. But yeah, so we got this training event in October.
Yeah, there's a lot of training events, but we have the former ASA Florida, now Florida Auto Care Alliance, is doing our first in-person training event October 14th. It's called Accelerate. It's going to be at the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista Disney Springs Resort. That's a lot to say.
Yeah.
So Saturday, October 14th, it's going to be a great time. I mean, it is a one-day event, but what we're kind of hoping for folks that do any kind of traveling to come to this thing is, be able to take a day and, attend some training and networks with other like-minded professionals, and then spend another couple of days to do the normal tourist Florida stuff. So looking forward to it, and we've got some great classes lined up, technical and management. For those listening, FloridaAutoCare.org, and you can find information about the event and register to attend there. But we're excited about it, and we're excited about your class, Sean, which is we saw, speaking of vision at Tech Talks this year, you did a presentation on using AI in the diagnostic process, which I thought was certainly a very creative, obviously AI being a very hot topic the last year or two. It was certainly a very creative and relevant topic, and you did a great job with it. It was very interesting, and I asked you if you thought you could put a full class together, and you said, yeah, we can do it. So definitely looking forward to what you have to present for the event, and then all the other great training opportunities that are going to be there as well.
Yeah. By the way, I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody listening, so you can just click on that as far as finding the webpage and information, registration, all that. But yeah, really cool that you reached out to me. The presentation at Vision, that was fun because I'm definitely fascinated by, all this artificial intelligence and large language model stuff coming out for, all kinds of different reasons, right? It has a ton of possibility outside of the automotive world, but what it could mean for us as technicians as far as tools, assistance, efficiency, accuracy, all that stuff is pretty cool too. So that's what I'm going to expand on a little bit. And the part of it I think is interesting too is, how it might, because we don't know exactly what all this is going to look like in 10 years, but how it might change our roles or affect our roles as human technicians, with all of the potential that this has both in and out of the car. Like what is it going to mean for the people working on cars right now? How is that going to change? So I'm pretty interested, and I think it opens up a lot of discussion, looking at the future of our industry.
Yeah. No, I mean, you could probably just come up with 1 hour of material and then talk with everyone about it for 2 hours.
Right. I mean? Yeah.
I mean, it's like simultaneously scary as heck and exciting as heck. So,
yeah.
No, it's a very cool topic. I mean, I think early on, it's just primarily a matter of trying to figure out how we can utilize it to help us in our daily lives, and more specifically, when it comes to trying to pinpoint problems for customers' cars. But you're right. You have to think, keeping an eye on it. I think, and kind of in your own mind, kind of start to take your guesses of where it is going to be going, and maybe how the steps you need to do to prepare for it. I mean, I think of that as a shop owner, anyways. Like, what is this going to, like you say, what's 10 years down the road? What can we do? How can we use it today to help us? But is there having some foresight to know how to react to the changes that it's going to instill in our lives?
Yeah, you stay on the forefront of stuff as much as you can, so you can stay relevant. That's the goal. And I feel personally like this is one of those things where you don't want to get left behind. You don't want to be like, the internet, who's going to use that? That's stupid, and there's people out there that say that about, the AI stuff that's coming out. But for me, it's one I'm like, I don't want to just discount this because I feel as though it's going to be a big deal.
Well, even in your present, what was that, 30, 40-minute presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, right away, I started thinking, I didn't even have to think about it. You basically showed us how. But the fact that you can feed this system, cut and paste some service information in there, and you get a synopsis, of what that all means, is like huge, because there's, unfortunately, there's so many of us, myself included, that kind of can struggle with reading comprehension. So the idea of being able to cut and paste service information in and getting like the high level, points that we really need, and then kind of dispersing all of that stuff that's maybe less necessary as far as language goes, and then being more efficient and potentially more accurate, because once you start to get confused reading service information, you can start making bad decisions based on the way you interpret it. And I see this just being, at least at this point, being another tool to help you to maybe get it right, understand what it is you're looking to prepare and diagnose better. So that was really cool. And then since then, I haven't gotten to the level you have, but I was even telling my service advisor the other day, he ends up investing quite a bit of time, kind of editing some of the technician notes to kind of make them, understandable for customers. And I was saying, you should use some of this AI to cut and paste some of the notes that you're getting from a technician to see what it comes up with. There may be a situation where, it can spit out something that you can really use for a customer, communications. And then, you've taken 20 minutes of your own time back, you're not losing that time anymore. So
I always told my service writer I gave up being an English major so I could be a mechanic, and because that's my notes, they're barely legible and poor grammar on top of it. So having an editor for my comments on the vehicle would be a good thing for most people.
Well, as a shop owner years ago, I told most of my technicians that, listen, I don't want to do the normal robotic type language when we're dealing with our notes on repair orders, because I think it's helpful. And basically, we look for every advantage we can, right? The odds are stacked against us. So if our notes can be personal and kind of almost like we're talking to the client in a way, and
Sure.
So I think it could be helpful. But unfortunately, it got to where it was taking so much time, and there's only so much you can do. Some people are just not strong with written communication. So it's been a bottleneck in our operation to some degree. So I don't know. I keep reminding JD, let's give that a shot. And I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have to try to do it myself and then show him, and hopefully it works out. And if I do it myself and it works out and I can show him, maybe he'll be more inclined to take it on.
Yeah. That's where I've been at, is trying to utilize some of this stuff in my actual day-to-day and seeing what actually makes sense, what's practical, or what's just wishful thinking. Like, it would be nice if it was useful in this regard, but realistically it's not. And yeah, you got to kind of parse some of that stuff out to figure out what actually makes sense for a business. But I think there is definitely some utilization even right now today, right? Before it grows anymore or it advances anymore. And the other thing is there's companies working on this all over the place that are going to be integrating into systems. You're going to see this built into all data or Identifix or something like that. But, for the moment, for now, what can we do with it to leverage it, help us out a little bit?
Man, I'm proud. It's going to be a first time. The exception being the tech talk. It's going to be a first full-time session talking about this subject, when how it relates to automotive diagnostics. So, very, very cool. Appreciate you willing to put something together for us. Look forward to it.
Well, it's my first full-time professional presentation, the Tech Talks being the only other one at a professional event. But I'm pretty excited, so should be good.
Well, do you teach part-time as well?
I taught at the local college for automotive for 5 years. I'm just full-time mobile now. But so I do have some experience, being in front of people and presenting, but it's a little different. Well, I could say it's a lot different teaching college kids versus a bunch of, industry professionals and peers and people that you look up to. That all of a sudden changes my mindset a little bit. So like you were talking earlier, like I got to get in a different mindset. I'm going to freak myself out here.
Basically the first time every time I present, especially at an event, because these events generally have really professionally minded, career minded people, and some of the best, obviously. So anytime I stand in front of working technicians, it's intimidating, but definitely the level of intimidation increases substantially at these events. And especially for Tech Talks, because there was like 100 people in there, and there was a lot. It was like there was a lot of buzz to it, and so there was a lot of the best trainers in the industry standing in the back watching us. And so I just made a mental decision. I'm not even going to look. I'm going to, when they tell you if you have a hard time, looking people in the eyes, look between their eyes if you're uncomfortable looking them in the eyes. Same concept. I was like, I'm not even going to look at them to know who they are. I'm just going to look out in the audience so that
Sure.
should have just turned my back on him like Jim Morrison supposedly did when he did some shows for the Doors or whatever. But, that would have been real. That wouldn't have been awkward at all, right?
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Who are some of the other instructors and trainers you got lined up for this event?
I'm glad you asked. Let me pull it up. So I can talk specifically about the technical ones because I was heavily involved with putting those together, and the management ones I'll have to pull up and kind of talk about those. But we have a good lineup for both sides. But technical, we'll start with that. Of course, I'm excited about that one. Richard Falco and I are kind of co-teaching a drivability class, but it's going to be kind of interactive. Our plan is to kind of present drivability case studies, but in a way like you would. I've always liked doing this, basically trying to emulate as much real world as possible. So we give you the year, make, and model information and the customer concern, and then the attendees kind of steer the ship. What do you want to do first? Okay, I want to pull codes. Okay, so we'll pull codes, and then what do you want to do next? And then, so we're hoping to separate the attendees into some groups, and then each group kind of works together, kind of silently, going back to kind of like high school group, sessions.
Sure.
They kind of amongst themselves kind of talk about what they think about the last test results, and what they're thinking, what they want to do next, if anything. We did something similar for the X50 virtual event a few years ago, and had a lot of fun and doing that. So we're looking to emulate that a little bit, but more of an in-person situation, and probably having multiple drivability case studies to run through that. We're going to have Jim Morton teach a diagnostic class, but it's kind of more on time management, which I think is kind of cool. Because like I was saying last night, we see a lot of situations where there are a lot of stuff in automotive diagnostics that's sexy. So, guys like you and I really find it interesting. We love diagnosing problems, especially ones that maybe some others have struggled with. I don't know. To me, it doesn't even matter. It's just fun to have a problem and be able to work through the process of figuring it out. Mm-hmm. And but some of these things it's like the big toolbox now, right? Like, being able to do these cool scope tests or whatever is sexy. So we're seeing a lot of folks kind of skip over a lot of necessary steps to jump to doing a test that's kind of sexy. And maybe, we see evidence of that, and clearly they've missed, a lot of clues in the process to do this sexy test. So I think Jim's concept for this class is really about being efficient with diagnosis, and making sure that if you're doing a test, you're doing it for a reason. You were led there because of the results of the last test you performed. And I think that'll be pretty cool. That's a Saturday afternoon thing, because I think he's coming in Saturday morning.
Okay.
John Thornton is doing 2 classes at this point. He's doing a variable valve lift class. I can't remember exact. He usually talks about the technology so that everybody kind of make sure that he's leveling the playing field. Everybody's comfortable with what, these systems, how they kind of operate, the components in them. And then he usually follows it up with case studies. So he's got specific examples. John Thornton is unbelievable. Anytime you have the opportunity to attend his class, it's going to be great. So when we asked him to consider teaching at our event, he said yes. We were on top of the world for sure. And he's like, well, what do you want? And I'm like, man, whatever you can. Brandon says something I think is pretty appropriate for this conversation is he could teach basket weaving, and I'd show up every time. So, yeah, he's doing variable valve lift, and then he's doing. This is a brand new class. He actually doesn't have the material. I joked about teaching basket weaving, but we wanted hybrid or EV stuff, at least one class for the event. And so I asked him if he had any hybrid class, and he didn't, but he said, "What are you looking for specifically?" And he's been doing this so long, he's got so many case studies that he's not had any opportunity to present. He has plenty of hybrid case studies, so he's able to throw a class together for us, and it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be awesome. So and then I think is that
do you know which one he's doing in the afternoon? I'm asking this selfishly.
Last night I was thinking about that, like it being a one-day event, and John Thornton has a class for every session. It's going to be, hard to compete with John. But I don't know which one he's doing. Which I can pull it up actually. But we also we're still trying to finalize some stuff with Adam Robertson and Gary Smith with Diagnation.
Okay.
Most likely they have a full day, really in-depth network diagnostic class. It goes, far beyond what most classes do. They're very, very proud of this class, and that's saying a lot because they both do remarkable stuff and very, very exciting. Adam is like one of my heroes, so I'm very excited to when they strongly suggest a class, like, okay, yeah, we'll probably do that class. So we're looking at, that's an all-day thing, I believe, and it's something they would co-teach. So and when they're together, I mean, they're fun alone, but when they're together, they're a bit silly, they're goofy, but you're not going to be bored. You're going to learn a lot of great stuff and probably leave there with some ribs hurting a little bit. But, from them making fools of themselves or, doing whatever. So that we're working on that. That's not a done deal, but looks like we might be able to get that happening as well. So if that does happen, we'll of course add that to the calendar and the schedule as well. But management classes, Rick White with 180 Biz, he's been we've been very fortunate to have him come along and do becoming the leader that your team will follow is one he's doing, and then becoming a true shop owner is another one. I think that one's in the afternoon. Bill Haas is doing a couple great presentations as well. I really appreciate Bill. He's been around a very long time, and I've been using Bill as a personal business coach for several years. And when I decided to use a coach, which I should have done years before, but I think pride gets in the way sometimes. But when I decided, of course, we talked about it. We have a lot of resources in the industry, so I had plenty of folks to choose from. And I really respect Bill because he spent years developing classes that had to do with dealing with different generations. And I think that's just remarkable because most of the time people just complain about an older generation or a younger generation. And so for him to put as much research and development into classes that help us to identify and understand different generations, I've always respected that. Now, of course, his daughter, Sarah Fraser, is doing the same kind of continuing to carry that torch for him. But Bill Haas with Haas Performance Consulting is doing why things don't get done and what to do about it. That's in the morning. And in the afternoon, what is he doing in the afternoon? He's doing a pretty cool class. Shop production and payroll that drive profits. So this is pretty cool. Because as diagnostic technicians, we often complain about, what shops are charging for diag and stuff like that. And I suspect with this class, he's going to be getting into some pretty cool ways to put incentive plans together to make sure that your team is being taken care of in a way that helps your company succeed. So looking forward to that for sure. Brian and Kim Walker doing 2, I think, classes for us. They're with Shop Marketing Pros. Very excited to have them on. I've been fortunate enough to attend at least some of her webinars, and she's a lot of fun. Creating a shop culture that attracts customers and techs is one, and creating loyal customers, how to make them feel special is another. But yeah, those are the management classes right now. Hopefully I didn't forget any. But, for sure, please don't hesitate to check it out. FloaterAutoCare.org. You can find that Accelerate banner and click on that to learn more about it. And, look forward to it. It's going to be fun.
I like it. Yeah. I should take some management classes. I really haven't ever done any of those. I always have gone for the technical stuff. So now that I'm running the show, I should probably figure some of that stuff out too.
It's always been hard for me at an event, because at an event, one of the hardest things is picking which classes you want to take, because a lot of times you want to be at more places than one.
Yep.
But being a technical person, it's hard for me to choose management over technical. So I'm in the same boat. Usually I've kind of forced myself in a few times, and sometimes they're really good and they're a lot of fun. Other times I'm just like thinking of what I'm missing in a technical session or something like that.
Sure. What, you mentioned the business coach. I'm just curious, what was the motivation, or what pushed you towards doing that? Because people have some pretty strong opinions both ways on business coaches, particularly in our world. But what was your experience?
So, years ago, before I really knew, I think probably before we had the resources we have, I had a shop owner that participated in ATI's thing. And ATI's thing's like it's like an ongoing commitment. Like you have to sign, I think 36 months is like the minimum, 30 or 36 months. It's not like a just handshake and we'll work together until we don't type of thing. And it's a pretty substantial financial investment. But I remember he sent me to service advisor training. Their operation was in Baltimore. We're in, of course, Florida. But he sent me to their service advisor training a couple of times. And it was a great feeling to be a part of that and learn as much as learn from that experience. And, so I was kind of, I knew about coaching pretty early, I guess, in my career, because this is early 2000s that went down. But I guess ultimately I felt like I've known about it a long time, but I have taken a lot of management training. I've participated in a lot of management conversations on IATN and the shop management discussion forums and stuff like that. I felt like I've learned a lot from a lot of people. So I felt like I had a pretty good idea how to run a shop, and my other fear with not doing it sooner, Sean, is there's so often you're promised the world with companies, and when you sign the line, it's like you feel like you're getting that fast food approach when they kind of gave you the impression you were getting a 5-star experience. And I was always afraid that I was going to invest this money into somebody to help us and just kind of get that fast food approach. But ultimately, it was kind of funny. I had a conversation with Carm with Remarkable Results, and I thought there was a while I kind of felt like some ownership into that podcast, just because I felt connected to it, because I had an idea that was similar, and that he had right about the time he started, and I just kind of felt connected to it and would pitch ideas from time to time. And one of them was going on and talking about being kind of vulnerable and talking about where we were, and then talking about getting a coach and what it how it has helped us and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it started, and I just decided to pull the trigger. And we never even did the episode, but I decided to kind of do a little more research and choose. But with regard to a lot of different point of thoughts, I think it's really, a lot of it has to do with, there are certain coaches that have a really big online presence, and they're not afraid to kind of change the status quo. And a lot of coaches are, and then a lot of people and some coaches are very protective of that status quo.
Okay.
But also, and I'm not really taking a side per se. I mean, I have very specific beliefs myself, but I think that we need to maintain our value without discrediting ourselves. But I think we also have to be realistic in the way we do business, because the world changes and we have to change the way we do business. And like you say, stay relevant. But so I think it boils down to just like anything else, man. I think, I believe in getting help if you need help with therapy and stuff. I believe in that. I think you decide that you're going to get therapy, you choose a therapist, and that therapist could easily not be the right therapist for you. I
Mm-hmm.
think the same thing applies to a business coach. I think you need to do if you. I think you need to not be afraid to have some help. The difference with me, I thought I knew how to run a shop because I attended a lot of management training. I knew a lot about managing an automotive business, but really having someone that is very wise and experienced and has dealt with a lot of different scenarios to just bounce off of them, that personal one-on-one relationship, but also hold you accountable, like just make you
Sure.
move, because I get stuck. I analyze the crap out of things and don't make decisions. So to have somebody kind of standing over my shoulder saying, make a decision, Brin, kind of helps.
Mm-hmm.
But like a therapist, you need to find somebody that fits you good. So fortunately, we have a lot of resources, and fortunately, they're not afraid. Most of them have an online presence, whether it's webinars you can participate in, or go to their in-person classes at events, or just listen to their podcast or their Instagram messages or whatever. You can learn about a lot about kind of how they approach things,
Mm-hmm.
and find a good fit for you, I think. But when I was talking to Carm early about it, I think he kind of, he's a strong believer in business coaches, but I think he had a statistic, if I'm not mistaken, that was pretty impressive, with regard to the successful shop owners he's had on his show. And success means different things for everybody, right? But
Sure.
the successful shop owners that he's had on his show, like an overwhelming percentage of them have had, coaches or continue to have coaches. So when you're
Okay.
thinking a little bit proud, I guess, and I can do this on my own, and if for folks like us that are paying attention to other things around us, and we have relationships on a national level, we see these successful shop owners, and to learn that they didn't do it on their own, kind of helps in that regard as well. But
Yeah.
I think everybody can find somebody that's going to help them in their business without, selling out their values, or, I think there's somebody out there for everybody.
That's cool. That's really good advice. Just the fact to, admit the fact that, like, hey, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not perfect at all this stuff. And, maybe I can do some reflection, say, okay, this is some areas where I could use some assistance figuring things out with my business, and then reaching out for help, whether it be a professional service like a coach, or, like you say, just friends in the industry. But just recognizing that, like, yeah, hey, I need to be open to what other people are doing, or, knowledge that they're offering, and take that into what I'm doing, rather than just like, yeah, I got it all figured out. I got this 100%. I'm not going to take advice from anybody. I know people like that. And it really limits you quite a bit if you can't at least be open with honest with yourself about that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And I think, for those that are starting off and don't feel like you have the budget for it, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you do. I can tell you that from my experience myself and everybody that I know that have worked with them, they pay for themselves. That said, when you're starting, you're working 14, 16 hours a day, and you're not even taking a paycheck in a lot of cases. So I get it. There are resources, though. We talked about it several times this episode. We are very fortunate to have the resources we have. But if you're utilizing those resources, you have to learn to be good to filter out the noise, and kind of identify what, if you're on a Facebook owner group or something like that and you're following it, you can learn a lot from those things. But realize that some of those folks are going to be keyboard cowboys, and they're going to, they're, basically just recognizing that there's noise there and trying to identify what's going to work for you and learn from what you can, but being able to recognize what is, what is good information and what's not.
These events are so powerful because then you can meet these people face to face, develop some real relationships, and get information straight from the person, not through a Facebook post or whatever,
Yeah, man. And that's exactly where I was going to go, is making personal relationships at these events. And that's another reason I believe in like alliances like Florida Auto Care Alliance, or even Automotive Service Association in North Carolina's group and California's group, is because even if you're not going to these national trade shows, a lot of these groups have networking opportunities for like chapter meetings and things like that, where you can kind of get to know and make personal relationships with other folks that are in similar positions from you. And they also, a lot of these associations have like a mentor type platform program. So if you participate in Florida Auto Care Alliance or ASA or something like that, then you'll have maybe some more veteran, successful shop owners that are willing to kind of give up some of their time to kind of bridge that gap for folks that, haven't committed on getting a coach, but they really have come to recognize that they need some help. So anybody to listen and keep that in mind as well. But yeah, if you're in between, go to an event or somehow, try to find a place where you can meet up with other professional shop owners and get involved, and don't be afraid to ask questions and be curious. We're afraid to ask questions. We're embarrassed, but the only way to grow is to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Like when me and you wore adult diapers to present Tech Talks.
Yeah, I bet you everybody wishes they were at that one. It's one of those things, like if you're wondering that question, there's like 4 or 5 other people in the room that are asking that same question, and then nobody speaks up. And it's 100% true. Like I would tell my class that in college, but then when I'm sitting in a class, I got to remind myself of that same thing. Like, okay, yeah, there's like a bunch of other people wondering the same thing. Like just ask the question. And these are professional events with professionals, like you said, and like nobody's gonna give you crap for asking a question. Like it's just, I've never seen that happen at any of these events that I've gone to. So ask away.
Oh, honestly, these instructors, man, they long for it.
Yes.
when I'm teaching and nobody's asking questions, nobody's participating, it's
brutal.
painful, man. It is painful. So do them a favor and ask that question, because and as an attendee, when those questions come out and another attendee sometimes chimes in too, you learn a lot from everybody that you're surrounded by as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've experienced that quite a bit, where somebody in the audience has the specific answer or specific experience for what the question that's been asked. But that's cool stuff. Well, cool, man. You got anything else for me? Anything else going on? It was your birthday this week, right?
Yeah, it was.
Happy birthday.
Appreciate it. I don't know. They're nowhere near as exciting as they used to be, but it's nice to be, pampered by the wife. I say that, but I didn't even get cake or ice cream, or nobody sang to me on my birthday this year.
Oh, man.
But always good to have social media, because then you at least get 100 people wishing you a happy birthday that you haven't seen in a year.
Sure, yeah.
I appreciate you having me on for sure, man. Always enjoy what you're doing. Every time I get I get a road trip or something like that, I make sure to take an opportunity to listen to either you or Matt's podcast. So appreciate all that you do, and very grateful to be on here. And hopefully, somebody can learn from my painful experiences. So appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, and again, thanks for inviting me to teach at the conference. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, everybody listening, again, those links will be in the show notes for getting registered or checking out the show or whatever. So all right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Big thank you to Brin for joining me today. Really appreciate that. Also like to thank everybody out there for listening and all the feedback I get on the show. Always appreciate that. Make sure to check out that link for the training event in October. If you want some more information, you can also reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Also, in the show notes, we got the links for all of our sponsors of the show that make this possible, so check those out as well. But with that all out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.